Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with the definitive, all-encompassing, multifaceted best of 2020 in the knife world. It's been quite a year, but there have been so many good knives. And honestly, I thought it was just a little boring to go ahead and offer another list of, my picks of favorite knives. So instead, what I've done is I've looked at every review that I could find. I've looked at all the reviewers that I personally follow and respect a great deal. I've listened to a bunch of reviewers that I don't listen to very often and don't pay much attention to in an effort to find the knives that everybody sort of agrees on. And so what I did was I started just listing these knives and then started making special note of the ones that get mentioned over and over and over again. I did try to pay some attention to, hey, I think because somebody else mentioned it, everyone else feels like they have to. So I have given that some, I've de-weighted some knives because I felt like it was just the crowd was in on it. But I also asked all of you. So I got a bunch of feedback from a number of places, especially my own Facebook page, the Sharp Stuff Facebook page. By the way, if you want to see the full list, just this long list that I compiled with all the results, you'll find that list on the Sharp Stuff Facebook page. You will have to ask to be a member there, but I'll put a link in the description box to that. I use that. I use Canadian Knife and Gear. I use a number of other sources. Anywhere where I saw someone talking about best of 2020, I just started writing down the knives that got mentioned. All right. So based on that long list and especially noticing which knives just came up over and over and over and over again, here we go with the knives that everyone really feels like are the absolute best of 2020. And the first one was so easy. Actually, before I start the list, let me say I'm remiss in not starting off with this. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope that you're able to have some semblance of a Christmas. I know in Ontario we're in lockdown, so you're not allowed to go see your family. You're not allowed to have people in the house. You're not allowed to do any of that stuff. But hopefully you're able to get together. Hopefully you're able to talk on the phone or have Zoom conversations or whatever the case may be to have some semblance of Christmas. And of course, we all are able to, and as I get older, I value this more and more, spending just a quiet day at home, opening gifts and having some laughs with my immediate family, my wife and my 2 kids. So I hope that everyone's able to have a great, great season, even though it may not be perfect, and I hope that God blesses all of us in 2021, most especially with an end to the foolishness that's taking place right now with the whole COVID stuff. So now we can finally go ahead and get into this video. I know we're 3 minutes in, but frankly, I really felt like I needed to get the setup in place so you guys understood what was going on. And the knife that by far got the most mentions, and it's a great price. Everything's awesome. I don't, by the way, have all of these knives, so I'm going to be rolling in pictures as we work our way through here, is the CJRB Feldspar. So CJRB is the budget line of Artisan, and they came up with the Feldspar this year, which is just a pretty plain standard knife. Great feel in hand, really nice balanced blade, great price point, great action. Like it did all the things that a knife needs to do, and it just did them well, and it was a great example of something simple done exceptionally well. And so that was an easy pick, and it's no wonder so many people love it. It's a really, really great knife, fun to fidget with, great to cut with, easy to carry. There's no doubt that I mean, there's no reason to wonder why that ended up on so many lists, and it's actually on mine as well. I'm going to give you at the very end of all this, I'm going to give you 2 things. One, I'm going to mention knives that I feel like really got left out, and 2, I'm going to mention my own personal picks. And I'd love to hear you guys mention in the comments. I know there are going to be some knives that were fantastic this year that probably didn't get enough love. So I'd love to see that down in the comments of this video. If you've got a knife and you're looking at it in your hand going, why did no one put this on their list? It's a fantastic knife. Put it down below. If you're a reviewer and I didn't watch your video and I didn't make reference to the knives that you picked, I'm sorry about that. But again, put it down in the comments below. Let us all know what you think is the best for the year, and especially justify your case. Like, let us know why you think that knife deserves to be on the list and why people sort of missed it. All right, so CJRB Feldspar was the first knife. Second knife, again, this one was across the board. Everyone mentioned it. Everyone loved it. There's been tons of hype around it. I need to get one, but I haven't been able to up to now. I will eventually for sure. But the 8020, this is an Andrew Demko sort of mid-tech. He calls it the machine. You can pick the machine ground or the custom ground. Obviously, most people are going with the machine because it's much cheaper. About the price of a Sabenza, I think, $425. And everyone loves this knife, and I can totally see why. I've watched a number of videos drooling over it. Again, I absolutely want to get my hands on one, but it's a great size. It's tough. The lock looks super fidget friendly and super fun. I love the blade shape. I love the overall design. You know, I'm a huge Andrew Demko fan anyway. So let me get some of these knives, by the way, out of the way. I'm talking about Andrew Demko. I should have the Formax prominently featured along with the 8010. So there we go. I'll try to switch these out every so often so the viewing, so it doesn't get too boring. You know, I will be putting pictures in anyway, but there you go. So I'm a huge fan of Andrew Demko. I really, really need to get my hands on this. And again, from everything that I've been able to hear and read and look at about this knife, it seems like, again, an obvious pick for best of 2020. How about the ProTech Malibu? This was a knife that, again, was on everybody's list. Now, you know, it seems to be modeled after the ProTech Mordax sort of aesthetic. All right, so an aluminum handled button lock flipper from ProTech. And there are a couple of reasons I haven't had one of these. One, they're pretty hard to get. Two, it's a little small for me. So I really hesitate to spend money on a knife that I don't think I'm actually going to enjoy using, that's just for curiosity purposes. I often do it, but this one, you know, I just haven't gotten my hands on yet. The other reason is the button lock action, I don't always love it. All right, so a lot of people really like this, and and listen, let me say that if you're going to get a button lock with a flipper, ProTech is definitely your best bet. They do a great job with the action, and of all of the button locks out there, they're second best. Okay, the very best is going to be Hogue with the XR series. I think they're the XR series. Anyway, what Hogue does is use a secondary detent system. So there's a leaf spring with a detent ball on it that functions all on its own, separate and apart from the lock. And I really think that's the best approach to this. And so I'd like to see more knives doing that. Right now, only Hogue that I know of, and probably some custom makers as well. All right, so the ProTech Malibu, again, looks to be a great knife, nicely done, thin blade stock, great EDC knife all around. Just, for me, a little small, and I'm not in love with button lock flippers because I just find the action is not as fantastic as it could be. Anyway, next knife is another one that I'm not a fan of, but got so much love. I mean, everyone talked about this. Every reviewer loved it. Many of you who commented on when I requested what's your best of 2020, many of you commented the Wee Banter, and largely I think that's because we're all fans of Ben. He does a great job. He's kind of moved out of the knife world these days, which is kind of sad, but wish him all the best. And the Wee Banter is a cool knife for sure. It's too small for me and just a little, I don't know. Let me say this. Wee does a great job with their G10 liner locks. I had the Streak a couple years back, and it was one of the most enjoyable knives. Just fantastic, like to the point that I compared it favorably to a Para 2, and I really, you know, if I was going to recommend one, I would be hard pressed to definitively say the Para 2 was way better. That's how good the Wee Streak actually is. And I have no doubt in my mind that the Banter is equally as awesome. All right, just a little bit plain for me, and of course, a little bit small for me. The next knife is not small for anyone, and it's one that, again, got so many mentions. I think it was a knife that a lot of you probably bought and own, and that's why it got so much love from just the community in general. All right, but this is the ColdSteel Formax. This is not what I'm talking about, but the budget version, the Formax Scout. Got so much love. Everyone talked about it. And again, I think that was right. Okay. This is This is a great knife and I absolutely love it, but most people don't want to pay $350 for a hard use cutting tool, right? People don't, especially if you're going to take this in the bush and beat on it, you're like, when that baton strikes the back of the $300 knife, you kind of go, I don't know if this is good. But when it's the Formax Scout and it only costs you $90 or $100, it's a little more bearable. Also, the other thing is the Formax is an occasional carry knife. It's not something that most people are going to carry every single day, day in and day out. It's going to be the knife you carry when you're going above and beyond and you need something that can keep up. All right. So the fact that they offered this in still good materials, OS10 steel, very, very nice. The grip was excellent. I mean, it delivered most of what this delivers. Not quite there, but so close that for $110, you could not possibly go wrong with the Formax Scout. And again, it absolutely deserves to be on this list. The next one, again, absolutely deserves to be on this list. Not at all comparable to the Formax, okay? We got to bring something else in here. I don't know. We'll just throw in some whatever. But the Ferrum Forged Stinger is the next knife on the list. And this is, I love Ferrum Forged designs. I hope that they do a production Stinger in a larger size because I really love this design. It was really well built by Wee/Civivi. Action was fantastic. The Nitro V steel is great, is a great option. I wish they did a satin option in it. I do like satin better than the heavy stonewash that they used. But in terms of a lightweight, practical cutting tool to have on you every minute, the Stinger is fantastic, right? Doesn't cost too much. It's a little cheap, it's a little expensive, but there are some great, this is a year for budget friendly stuff, guys. The Formax Scout, now the Stinger. There's so many things on this list that are under $100. In fact, I think, anyway, I'll come back and do a quick survey of that at the end. If I forget, I'm sorry. But Ferrum Forged Stinger, great budget knife, great action, easy to work with. Even for me, with my preference for larger knives, it was workable because of the nice, generous finger choil. Just a great knife all around. Absolutely deserves to be on this list. The next knife I haven't had, okay, I haven't felt it in hand, I haven't played with it, but everyone mentioned this knife. It's really, really popular, and that is the Civivi Ortis. Now the Ortis is a little bigger than the Stinger, and I really want to get my hands on it because I think this would be one that I could really connect with. I think it's big enough that I'd enjoy it more. But so many people that I trust, so many reviewers that I listen to and that I talk to on a regular basis just loved this knife. And because I, have so much respect for them, the fact that they mention it alone convinces me that this is a fantastic knife. Now it might be a little small for me, but probably for most of you, it's going to be fantastic. The Civivi Ortis, available in a more plain version or a fancy version. Really, really good without a doubt. Next knife on the list, the Spyderco Canis. Now I have to say, guys, when I first saw the Spyderco Canis, I was really curious. I really wanted to check it out, but I honestly felt like, okay, this is going to be one of those knives that I like and no one else likes. And I'm just going to be all on my own saying, hey guys, this is a really cool knife. And everyone's like, shut up, you idiot. But instead, for once, everyone agreed with me. And I was like, what's happening right now? The Canis is a little bit different looking design. The blade spine is thinned out to save weight. But I guess there are some things, in hand, it feels great. It's just meant to be in a human hand. It's so nice and so comfortable. So that's number one. Number two, it's one of the best. After the Para 2, it's as good as a Para 2 in terms of its implementation of the compression lock. And that's saying something. There are a lot of knives that have compression locks that I don't love that much, guys. There are. This one is so nice. Let's throw these two. I'll throw this is going to be a comparison for sure on my channel coming up shortly. So make sure if you're watching this, you subscribe so you don't miss that because it's going to be an interesting video. But the Canis is, it's well built, it's comfortable in hand, and that hollow grind slices like crazy. It's just a fantastic knife. And I did get some comments on my video, and I'm sure others did as well, that the looks of it were pushing people away. But once you get it in hand and once you do a little bit of cutting with it, you're like, this thing is wonderful. And it really, really, such an enjoyable knife. And a lot of people, and I bet, you know, if we could, you know, I'm not going to start asking other reviewers right now, but I'll bet you a lot of reviewers felt the same way as me, that they, you know, they maybe got it as a curiosity. And once they actually got it in hand and started playing with it and using it, they were like, whoa, this is really, really good. The next knife is not one that I would pick at all, but one that has really been popular with, again, a lot of people. So yeah, the CJRB Rhea, smaller knife from CJRB, but very, very well loved. Lots of people mentioned this knife. Now, I got it more from reviewers, which was interesting. A lot of community members didn't mention the Rhea, but it was consistently on the list for a lot of the reviewers that I listen to and pay attention to. So I have no doubt that it's good, just too small for me. Next knife is one that I really need to get my hands on, and that is the QSP Penguin. Another budget knife, guys. Look at how many. So if you're the budget knife guy, this was your year. Like, there are tons and tons of great budget knives this year. But the Penguin is a cool little Wharncliffe knife. Very simple design, but again, it was consistently mentioned just to be so well done, so well put together, great action, enjoyable knife. So no doubt that it is very, very good. Last two on the list. So the last two in sort of my top, I don't know what we're at now, 10 or 12 or 11 or something like that. However many there are. One did not get mentioned a lot, but a couple people did bring it up, and a couple community members brought it up as well. And it's also on my list, and that is the Kershaw Tumbler. Fantastic knife, very attractive design. I love the overall flow of it. I love the lightweight. I love the blade shape. Just easy to carry, fantastic action. There's a lot of really, really good stuff going on with the Kershaw Tumbler. So again, that was a no-brainer for me to leave that one on the list. Finally, this one might be a little bit controversial, but certainly was a knife that I enjoyed, and I got a couple of mentions about this knife specifically from community members. It didn't get as much love from the reviewers, so I don't know. I'll comment on that in a couple of minutes. But the Zero Tolerance 0308 ZT kind of returns to the 300 series, and you know, the 0300, it was sort of the definitive ZT. It was the knife that everyone was drooling over when I first got into knives. It was one of the knives that was sort of a dream knife for me, and I still enjoy it. The 308, actually, there were a few points about it that I like even better than the 300. Of course, it was not assisted opening. It feels really, really good in hand, at least as good as the original 0301 to whatever. The blade shape, no recurve. I like the blade shape a little bit more. Overall, like, this is, you know, honestly, guys, the 0308 is one of my favorite ZTs. I like the design. I especially like the blade. That taller blade gives them enough room to do a flat grind that still cuts really well. And one of the things ZT tends to struggle with is edge geometry, but on the 308, it's really, really nice. And so, yeah, it feels good in hand. It has really enjoyable action and a great blade shape. So for all of those reasons, and plus it's sort of a throwback to the ZT that I can remember being so into when I first got into this. So it gets some nostalgia points as well. So for all those reasons, the 0308 is going on the list. And a number of people mentioned it, but it didn't get a lot of love from reviewers. And here's my contention. For some reason, the 308, there was a little bit of a bias. I think most people now are like, okay, ZT's moved on. They're not like hard to use tactical knives anymore. And so when they kind of came out with that, it threw a little bit of a wrench in that perception. A couple people didn't like the cutout, which, I mean, I don't know. I think it's fine. Actually, I kind of like the look of it. And I don't really think the suggestion that it's going to let gunk inside is a big issue. So anyway, 0308. Now, honorable mentions. I've got to hit some honorable mentions. I'm not going to talk about these to the same degree, but Sharp by Design got a bunch of, various models mentioned. So the Void and the Micro Evo Typhoon. Now, I'm not sure that both of those are 2020 models. The Wee Kite Fin, again, it got a couple of passing mentions, more than just one. Okay, so again, I felt like it deserved honorable mention. The Riot Bushido. I love this design. I wish it was bigger. That's the only problem with the Bushido. But a Riot knife with that level of quality for the price point, I think they're like $225 or something like that. That's fantastic. And I probably will eventually get one, even though it won't be to keep forever. I just want to check it out. The ColdSteel SR1 Lite got a couple of mentions, mostly from the community, more so from reviewers. The problem with the SR1 Lite is it doesn't cut well. And I guess that's not fair. For EDC tasks, edge geometry is actually not that important, but I like knives that will slice a little better than this one slices. And I use my knives in the bush somewhat, and so I want a knife that can carve wood a little bit better than this as well. And that's all a result of how thick it is behind the edge and how aggressive that angle is. The Oz Machine Company Roosevelt, I got a couple of mentions for this knife, and of course, having just reviewed it, it stood out in my mind, and it is a nice looking knife for sure. Very, very hard to get, and it's hard to put a knife on this kind of a list that no one's going to be able to get their hands on, so I didn't. Alliance Design Slim Pickens, another one that got a couple of mentions, not from reviewers, but from the community, and so I wanted to throw it in. And finally, a knife that I do think was overlooked, and I'm going to move on to a couple of knives that I think were overlooked. The Lionsteel Thrill is such a cool slip joint, and I get that it's a slip joint, and because of that, it's probably not going to be as popular, but that is such a cool knife that I really feel like it should have been on more people's list. It is on my list, and it under both categories. Number one, just a fantastic knife from this year, but number two, a knife that really got overlooked. So my list includes, and I tried to do these as we went along, but I missed some. So you already know the 308. You already know the Kershaw Tumbler. Two fixed blades that were on my list that I absolutely loved this year. The Kaiser Harpoon, great EDC fixed blade, great size, great feel in hand, great blade shape, a fantastic design, just a beautiful, beautiful knife. I'm trying to think of the designer's name, but it's evading me. But I'll try to annotate it here in the video. The next one is another fixed blade, the Lionsteel B35, another beautiful knife, highly functional. Workable so it's very similar to the M4, but just a little slimmer and a little more, I don't know, slicey, I guess. Just thinner overall, a little thinner in hand. Ultimately, I do like the M4 a little bit better, but the B35 is a huge win from Lionsteel. I already mentioned the Feldspar, the Tumbler are both on my list. We've already talked about it. The Formax Scout, again, on my list, easy one. Now, this one didn't make anybody's list, and I was a little disappointed. The Spyderco Yojumbo, you guys know I like the big stuff, and that's probably why I mentioned this where others didn't, but it was a great feeling knife in hand. It had fun action, great big blade, really, really a beautiful grind. Just that big hollow ground Wharncliffe blade looks fantastic. Truly just a really, really enjoyable knife from both a user standpoint and a knife geek standpoint. And finally, the most overlooked knife. I can't believe this didn't get so much more attention. The Monterey Bay Knives XLC. And I actually was surprised too that the old guard didn't end up on more people's list. I mean, I guess it was just too recent. But I think it deserves to be on a few lists. But the XLC is beautiful. It's a fantastic design. It's an integral. It's not a crazy price point for an integral. It just, there's so many things that I really, really liked about that knife. Carries really well in pocket, great blade design, great cutting power, beautiful finishes, just a really, really impressive knife. So the last thing I want to point out here is that in general, there are two companies that stood out. One is Civivi. So many great budget knives from Civivi. I guess there are three companies actually that I want to mention. So many great budget knives from Civivi. It's just hard to go wrong with anything you like from them. The second one, the most valuable player, right? The most improved player, I should say, is without a doubt SOG. They came out with a number of great designs for this year. The XR Lock is well done, and the new direction I think is very, very welcome. And there are a bunch of SOG knives now that I actually plan to get and review. And finally, Concept knives, kind of an up and comer. And when they first started putting knives out, I wasn't so sure about them, but they have really proved themselves. And by the way, they're the result of some Kaiser employees kind of going their separate ways and doing their own thing. And I think they're doing a really, really good job by all accounts. I've actually got some on the way to me if they ever make it with all the CBSB, Canadian Border Services problems in Canada. Overall, guys, I want to say thank you so much to all of you for another great year for the channel. I did hit 12,000 subscribers. I'm super excited about that. Merry Christmas to everyone. May God bless you in the new year. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you soon.